fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants and fire. Ooh, yeah, fire.
Lies will burn your conscience,
And lies
will take you to a bad place.
so
Tell the truth and you won't have to worry about your pants
being on fire.
I saw two men arguing. One man said to the other,
Liar,
liar, pants
on fire.
But don't worry too much about your pants being on fire, 'cause liars will burn for all eternity. Hey,
Liar, 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 pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Lies, pants and fire. Ooh, yeah, fire. Lies will burn your conscience and lies will take you to a bad place. So tell the truth and you won't have to worry about your pants being on fire.
I saw two women having heated debate, and one of the women said to the other,
Liar, pants on fire.
can you feel the heat burning? Lies are nothing more than sin that tries to hide the truth.
Pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Lies, pants and fire. Ooh, yeah, fire. Lies will burn your conscience and lies will take you to a bad place. So tell the truth and you won't have to worry about your pants being on fire.
Lies roll off the tongue so easy, but the truth can be a tough pill to swallow. But you can live with the truth, but you may die for a lie. So tell the truth to Jesus. He will give you enough truth to last a lifetime and beyond.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Lies, pants and fire. Ooh, yeah, fire. Lies will burn your conscience and lies will take.
Can't be any more plain than that. And how many of you learned this as a child? And you know, there are several different variations, some that I couldn't put up there. Liar, liar, pants on fire, stick your nose on a telephone wire. Did you learn that one? Liar, liar, pants on fire, stick your ears on the telephone wire. Liar, liar, pants on fire, your nose is longer than a telephone wire. Now, the interesting thing is, this was actually written in a book around 1840, before they had telephone wires. So I don't understand. I couldn't find what the original word was, but I think you'll like this one. Liar, liar, pants on fire, hanging by a telephone wire. While you're there, cut your hair and stick it down your underwear. That was one of the mild ones. Anyway, I remember singing this, and, you know, it was a response. Now, does this sound like a truth that you want to teach your kids? If you tell lies, your pants are going to burn. Well, even greater than that is the message that the song and the nursery rhyme was written for, was to warn us. If we lie, we are in danger of burning. Again, that is a strong message for a kid. Now, did we understand it when we were kids? No, we just thought our pants were going to burn off. But mothers and fathers, if you battled your children lying, you knew that it was important that you nip it in the bud, because if you didn't, they may grow up to be compulsive liars. And folks, we know there are people in our lives who are compulsive liars. Why? Because they have no concept of the truth. They don't know that the message of truth is this: the truth will set you free. What does a lie do? It imprisons you. It holds you. You tell one, you got to tell two. Then it becomes easier and easier. Well, how do you know someone is lying? Well, in today's world, you doubt everything that's being put on the news, don't you? Is it true? But how do we know someone is lying? By knowing the truth. That I know if you tell me something and I think that's not true, and it's not true, liar, liar, pants on fire. But we must know the truth. The Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy in chapter 3 of 2 Timothy. He says, don't worry about it. Their folly will be clear to everyone. Everyone who knows the truth. Today, as we continue, actually start winding down this summer of truth, our quest for truth, we're going to be focusing on you and me individually. We're not going to be looking at each other or looking at others. We're going to have to take a look in the mirror. Because, folks, we don't want to be called liar, liar, pants on fire. Let's go to God in prayer. Father, I thank you for this message, and as we open your word, may we take it from Jesus' lips to our ears. May your Spirit convict us, Father, to live honestly, to live in your truths, and not in our opinions or what we think is true, but what we know is true. So, Father, help us face this world and be a witness of your truth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, there are many reasons we lie. At least there were many reasons that I would lie, mainly to protect myself from trouble. If I could get out of it, I would. Now, I was the oldest child. I was the perfect child. Maybe a little self-righteous. But folks, I knew if it could get me in trouble, I better lie about it. But you know what I've learned, and even as an adult, the lies will come to truth, and you will be held accountable for what you say. So, we need to be speaking it. We need to be telling the truth. And there's only really one good reason to tell the truth, and that's because it's the truth. We have many reasons to lie, but we need to hold on to the one reason to tell the truth, that it's always the truth. In his Sermon on the Mount, Jesus in Matthew 5 puts it very simply, puts it very plainly. He puts it out there. Matthew 5:37. All you need is to simply say yes or no. Anything beyond this becomes from the evil one. Boy, we wouldn't have much to say if it's just yes and no. But maybe it might not be a bad way to live. Because then you can't change the truth. You can't embellish it. You only have to say yes or no. But then again, you could still say yes when it's a no and no when it's a yes. So you see, we're still faced with lying. And Jesus, in this his Sermon on the Mount, he simply puts it out there that your yeses need to be yes and your no's need to be no. Now, is that always easy? Obviously not. How do you respond to these questions? Do you like my hair? I'm fine. Nothing is wrong. I'll call you right back, or let's catch up soon. I didn't see your text message, or my phone battery died. We must be careful in how we answer questions that are hard to... Now, I don't know how to answer, does my hair look nice? So my thing is to each of us, don't go fishing for compliments. Look in the mirror. You can tell whether it looks... But, I guess a lot of people can't. Just look out here. But thinking about this, sometimes we get in more trouble by trying not to hurt somebody else. Or we get into trouble when we're trying to avoid our own punishment or our own hurt. But folks, if you don't want to know what your hair looks like, don't ask me. I'm not going to be mean. If I don't say a word, maybe that's for the best. But you know, not everything can be summed up in a yes or a no. Because sometimes we need to stand on the truth and the world needs to hear the truth. Sometimes the truth we know, but it may not be our truth to tell. So we need to show some self-control. And when you don't have a dog in that fight, don't get in that fight. So what's interesting, there are thousands of white lies. Thousands of them. I probably could have written for a month and still not got to the bottom of all the lies that we tell that we would call white lies that really don't hurt anybody. I found out that studies show that the average person tells between 1 and 2 white lies a day. Doing the math for 365 days, that's 730 lies per year. Now, I don't think I need to go in further in that because I don't want to be convicted if I'm above average or below average. But I think we know that often we feel forced into lying when we shouldn't. There's no reason to lie. There's every reason to tell the truth. Now, sometimes we lie intentionally, and sometimes our intentions are well-meaning. Yet, we do lie. We feel forced to, and we feel like there was no other option. Now that I have you all feeling pretty low and bad about yourselves, I want you to remember the truth that will set you free is the truth from the burden of a lie. Though it may seem easier to lie than it is to explain the truth, explaining the truth will last longer and actually last to eternity. Because if you tell one lie, what happens? You got to tell another lie to keep the first lie going, and then you're down a rabbit hole. That's why Jesus is simply saying, speak the truth. Now, in his Sermon on the Mount, which actually covers from Matthew 5 to Matthew 7, there are 107 verses in this teaching of Jesus. Now, we call it a sermon, like if the people sat around him and he preached, it would be about a half an hour sermon, about the length of mine on most days. But thinking about Jesus is saying in this sermon many things. But for these 2 verses, he speaks about us telling the truth. Now, Jesus is speaking to a crowd of people who were living in a time when, of course, they were under the law, but it was in a time when people were really dismayed at their religious leaders. Because their religious leaders were saying one thing and doing another. They could see this hypocrisy. And so did Jesus. So Jesus walks up to them and says, liar, liar, pants on fire. Well, actually, he gets a little more stern than that. In Matthew 23:33, he says, you snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Pretty blunt. Not sure I'd ever want Jesus to say that to me. But folks, we need to be careful. We do not want to be found a liar. We want to be someone who is living the truth and speaking the truth. Now, we're going to back up and go back into Matthew 5 and just kind of put what Jesus is saying into context. Again, what he's saying simply is, you need to be better than your religious leaders. You need to be better, do better, speak better. You need to be honest people. So from Matthew 5, verses 17 through 20. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of the pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you certainly will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus publicly is using the religious leaders as his subject when he's teaching to people who are lost in this confusion, who are doubting what they're hearing and what that the religious leaders are doing. Hypocrites. You ever been called a hypocrite? Hope not. But the world thinks there's a lot of hypocrites in the world. The world thinks there's a lot of hypocrites in the church. Oftentimes that's what keeps people, drives them out of church. But if we could be people of the truth, what we say and what we do is exactly what Jesus is calling us to do. Jesus to them and to us is being pretty blunt. You have to do better and be better than your religious leaders if you want to get to heaven. Now, this is before salvation by grace. This is before Jesus paying the price on Calvary. He hasn't revealed yet who he is. But all in due time, to the 12 that he had chosen, and to those who stuck by him for that whole time, would have heard the complete message and would have understand the truth. Lying will end you in hell. So, when Jesus says this, let your yeses be yes and your noes be no. It isn't easy to do, but we have to if we want to live there. Now, in the Old Testament, the book of Zechariah, God gave Zechariah a message of encouragement to the people of Judah. What had happened at this time was the people of Judah had started to return to Jerusalem after their 70 years exile. Now, this exile was a punishment to the people because of their disobedience. So God allowed them to go back, and they start rebuilding the city, they start rebuilding the temple, but they got discouraged. People started doing their own things. And God, through Zechariah, sends them a message of encouragement, but he calls them to live honest, truthful lives, which is what Brian read earlier. Zechariah 8, verses 16 through 17. These are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to each other, and render true and sound judgment in your courts. Do not plot evil against anyone, and do not love or swear falsely. I hate this, declares the Lord. He encouraged them with a lot more hope. He gives them and explains to them what they are to do in order to overcome their enemies, to overcome their fighting within. And it all is found in the truth. The truth of who they are, God's people, and the truth in how they are to live. So, maybe we should take Zechariah's message and speak the truth. Treat each other honestly and render sound judgment. Now, I've kind of went through some application of both of these scriptures that Jesus spoke and, of course, that God said through Zechariah. And I've kind of put them all into a few points that I'd like to share. Speaking the truth requires committing to it and putting forth the effort. Now, committing to it. I'm going to commit myself today to speak the truth when I'm asked a question. How are you? You don't really want to know. That's an honest answer, isn't it? It's not that I have to share everything or how I feel. But sometimes we just need to be honest about how we feel and say, oh, I'm fine, when you're not. We also, on the flip side, have to be honest and committed that when you ask somebody how they feel, you really care. So you see, there's a commitment to the truth. Be careful the questions you answer, and be careful the questions you ask. Now, telling the truth can get exhausting, but not as exhausting as purporting a lie. In 2 Peter 1, verses 5 and 6, Peter tells this to his listeners that I think it's important for us. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness. Now I know it doesn't mention lying. What he's saying is we have to commit ourselves, and we have to make every effort to being good, and some days that's not fun. Now, but being good leads to what? Goodness, knowledge. Knowledge leads to self-control. Self-control to perseverance. As I said earlier, we don't always have to speak the truth we know, but we must live it. Sometimes this self-control leads us to not answer the questions we've been asked, because sometimes it's silence that serves better until the person you're talking to is ready to hear the truth. Now, if you come up to me and say, Steve, do you like my hair? I'm going to try not to say yes if I don't, but I have to be careful. I know that's flippant. So maybe it's best we just don't ask each other. Do you like my hair? It needs cut. Sophia said, Pappy, your hair's getting big. From the mouths of children come the truth. But yet we do need to be careful, because being good and doing good means speaking the truth and living it. And that should be our labor of love. Not a labor that we have to, but a labor that we want to. You know, speaking the truth isn't just for your benefit so you get a check mark up on your ledger in heaven. It's also what other people will see. You know, that Jeff's a pretty honest guy, and he's a good old boy. You see, people see that, and they know honesty, and hopefully they'll connect that to your faith and connect that to your God, and they will want what you have. So folks, speaking the truth does take commitment and effort. It also takes being truthful with yourself before you speak. As you know, I have an opinion about everything. I'll tell you my opinion. Sometimes you don't have to ask. But we have to be careful. God's truth may not always be my opinion. That's why we need to get control of ourselves. That's where it begins. That people will know. I'm sorry, I just realized I didn't have this on. Thank you for saving me. But getting control of your own tongue, your own heart, your own mind, this self-control that comes from goodness, it requires a commitment to yourself. Psalms 34:13 says, "Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit." Now, I know this is going back about 2,500 years, but the truth is still the same. We need to watch what we say. Remember what Jesus' main problem with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the teachers of the law was? Their hearts didn't match what they were preaching. Their lives didn't match what they were preaching. Jesus saw it. The people knew it. So again, that's why he said, you must be better than them. So folks, you must be better than me if you want to get to heaven. That doesn't take much. But thinking about this, we need to make sure we have control over self. Have you ever heard this that says, a truth hurts for a moment, a lie hurts for eternity? Big ramifications in that phrase. I don't know who said it, but I liked it. We may think we're protecting ourselves. We may think that we're protecting someone else. But speaking the truth is what will make the difference when spoken in the right manner. So let's go to Ephesians 4:15 and look what Paul said here. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. So by speaking the truth in love will help the medicine go down. Because sometimes the truth needs to be said. Well, let me not say sometimes. There are times that the truth must be said, and it must be heard. And those hearing have to accept that it is the truth. But if I get a truth spoken to me that hurts, but yet I see the love behind it, that's the key. That's the important thing that Jesus and Paul were trying to get us to do. Remember, Zechariah, he's talking about amongst yourselves. There's nothing worse than a church fight. There's nothing worse than when people disagree about color of carpet or about when we do what. We all have our opinions. Sometimes it may not be worth fighting over. Now, speaking the truth does require being kind and compassionate to others as you speak. Just speaking the truth isn't enough, but it's speaking it in love. Silence sometimes speaks volumes, doesn't it? I always know when I'm in trouble. But speaking not speaking may be what's needed. You know the great theologian Cowboy Bob used to say this at the end of every show. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. He passed away a few years ago, and I just saw that Janie passed away this week. She was 91 or something like that. Oh, that's a childhood. Oh, that was a wonderful time on Channel 4. But there's volumes of understanding. Yes, you know the truth, but the truth may not be yours to tell. How do we know? By the Spirit of God within us, by the love of God in our hearts. May not be a public statement of truth. It may be a private one-on-one. You see, Paul had dealt with the untruth, the falsehood, the false teachings in the church of Corinth. But he instructed the leaders to go individually to each other when there was a problem. And if they didn't listen, you took two. If they didn't listen, you took them before the elders. And if they still didn't listen, you took them before the church, and then you excommunicated them. I've only known one church in my ministry that did it. That was a church in Haiti. Now, I'm not saying that we kick you out. What I'm saying is, we shouldn't give us cause. We shouldn't give any leader cause Because we should be living the truth, God's truth. Not our opinions, but His truth. So, folks, it all comes down to it. It. Don't hide it, don't deny it, don't embellish it, do not tell part of it, but speak all of it. Let it be your fruit of your lips, springing from the depths of your heart. Stand on it, live by it, and most certainly speak it in love. The whole truth, not in part, but the truth. It may seem complicated, but it's not. In 2 Corinthians 13:8, one of the most profound scriptures, I think, just within itself. For we cannot do anything against the truth, but only for the truth. Our lives need to show the truth. Our words need to express the truth. Because the truth is what will set us free. We must speak the truth. Don't be a liar, liar, pants on fire. You got it? Well, sometimes it's hard, I know. But lying leads to a place we don't want to go. So let's speak the truth.